So I wanted to come on and have a conversation and talk about how therapists and healers can have better boundaries while they're dating. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. This commenter here asks, "Hi, can you do a video where women cross over into your field in relationships, because it's said that men look for women who are useful to them and meet their needs." In other words, she's saying, how do you have better boundaries as a therapist? And I know that there's, some of you have commented on other posts, you know, don't tell people you're a therapist and this and that, the other. And I don't necessarily agree to that or subscribe to that. I mean, I know why some people do it, and I get it, but I don't necessarily agree with that for me myself. And eventually, if it turns into something serious, that person's going to know what you're doing for work anyway. And I actually did a podcast on this a while ago. So it's somewhere. But anyhow, I think it's as a therapist, you need to work on your boundaries while you're dating. So I think any therapist that's actively practicing should automatically be in therapy, in my opinion. And this is my opinion. I think any therapist that's not in therapy, that's kind of a red flag. You only grow as much as the clinician and as a person as long as you're willing to do the work on yourself. I think that's number one. And number two, if you have empathy, empathy is great, but you need to learn how to manage empathy. So number two, or number three, when you don't know somebody, there's a low level of emotional investment. So I can say, hey, I'm a therapist. And, whenever people ask me what I do, this is kind of what I tell them, even though I do a lot more. I just tell them, hey, I'm a therapist, and that's it. And I let it go. And then, people make assumptions, people do all these kind of things, and that really actually has nothing to do with me. I actually think it's great feedback to see how a person reacts when you tell them that, because they can be foreshadowing, and a lot of times they are foreshadowing how they're going to behave going forward. And so, for example, some years ago, I went out on a date. This was a few years ago. I went out on a date, told a guy that I, got my degree in psychology, and he started spewing off and talking about how that was the stupidest degree, and he had a child, and if his child ever told him he wanted to get a degree in psychology, he would not allow them to do that, and blah 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 blah. And I just sat there and looked at him. I'm like, okay, well, so I'm already knowing that I'm never going to see you again. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to get up from this table in a couple minutes, and then I'm just going to mosey on about my day. I don't really have anything else to do after that. I don't feel compelled to, because now he's being openly disrespectful. So I don't feel compelled to emotionally invest anything after that. I don't feel compelled. I don't have to give him an explanation. As a matter of fact, I could get up from that table right then and there and feel fully justified. So my job is to, listen, observe, manage my empathy or my need to feel like I need to do something when someone doesn't approve or when someone acts a certain way. I'm just here to, my therapist is a part of my identity. It's not my entire identity. And he made a judgment and got very obnoxious about it. Fine. I don't really care. So that's number three. Number four, when people want to talk to you and overshare, um, you know, on a date right away because they feel like you're a therapist. Again, I feel like that's a done data. We're not going to see each other after that anymore, because that's a sign that they're not really interested in you, or they already have poor boundaries, or they want to use you for emotional labor. So again, that's like, listen, observe, and then get up and go whenever you're ready. But don't offer that emotional labor. You can also you could speak to it. You could address it and say, hey, I noticed that you're doing this when I shared this, and I'm just trying to keep things light and get to know you for the first date. So in other words, you need to have boundaries around the emotional labor and, what you're willing to do and the amount of problem solving that you're willing to do. If you don't know somebody that well, for me, I'm not willing to do it for people who aren't paying me. plain and simple. And that's my boundary. And you can have yours, but there's a good chance if you have struggles with emotional labor, that is more about you and less about them, because that's a need to feel, you need to feel accepted, validated, and you want to feel useful in order to feel accepted or validated. I don't need to feel any of those things on a first date. The more you care for yourself, the more the more you have boundaries and you're okay with, like, if it doesn't work out because I'm a therapist, or people want to show up a certain way because I'm a therapist, that's on them. That is not on me. I personally don't believe in building on a lie. And when people build on lies, I feel like that's a sign that this is probably not going to last. Like, whether you lie about how you look, you lie about your age, all that kind of stuff is an indication that you're not in this for the long haul, because you obviously have something to hide. So I say, show up as your true, authentic self, manage your boundaries, manage your expectations, right? Because your expectation is you desire courtship, companionship, and whatever else, but you're not willing to work, as in clock in and go to work as a therapist in order to show up for somebody. And if you do, or if you have made that mistake, let it go, because it's pretty much done already. Once that cycle starts, it's hard, if not damn near impossible, to get out of it. Really, we shouldn't even be talking about needs, like how you can meet my needs, that early on in dating and in courtship, not until we're exclusively in a relationship. We should be getting to know each other. We should be having fun. We should be trying to build a connection to see if we have anything in common. But needs and all that stuff is more for a relationship. You do not do that in dating. So when you start talking about needs, that's more for the person that you're with, as opposed to the person that you're dating. The person that you're dating should be courting you, and you should be vetting them to see if they meet the criteria to become someone more exclusive, like someone you want to marry, and so on and so forth. Until then, I recommend keeping your options open. Um, I also don't recommend having sex quickly, because sometimes when we do that, a lot of times for women, not all the time, but a lot of times, women can get tunnel vision, and the other person can, vice versa. So you want to try to be as objective as possible. That's going to help you, make sure you're vetting properly for your standards, your values, and maintaining your boundaries. So I hope this helps. Thanks so much for asking that. And if you guys like this, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and the newsletter. Both are linked in my bio. Thanks so much. Take care.